So I know you've had some wonderful talks on wisdom these past few weeks. Wisdom is, boy, it's such an interesting parami, isn't it? So it's the fourth, and I think it's kind of interesting to just maybe talk a little bit about the order. It's the fourth of the paramis, the heart, mind qualities that we're trying to cultivate in the practice. And why is it the fourth? It's interesting because some authors would suggest that it should be at the top of the list, that everything flows from and out of wisdom. And some people will say that it's best at the end of the list because it is indeed the culmination of all of these qualities together. And they're all right. They're all right. And the fourth actually, follows suit. So I thought it might be nice to just take a step back and take a look at the paramis and see how they build upon one another. So the 10 paramis begins with generosity, because generosity is what opens our heart to the needs of others, to our own needs, and to the needs of the world that we inhabit. Generosity actually sets the stage for the heart, for the conditioning of all of the other paramis. It's open-heartedness, open-heart-mindedness gives rise to the tendency toward sila, toward living an ethical lifestyle, which is the second parami. So we have generosity, then we have sila, an ethical lifestyle. In body, speech, and mind, we aim to be skillful, to do wholesome things that lead to wholesome results, and to avoid the things that lead to suffering. So an ethical lifestyle, you could say, perfects or refines generosity, because it is a generous act that we offer ourselves, others, and the world by living in an ethical way. It is an exceedingly generous act. And then this wish, though, to not cause harm is actually what gives rise to the third parami, which is renunciation, renouncing harmful acts of body, speech, and mind. Because when we start to recognize and realize that certain actions lead to our own and other people's suffering, we naturally start to orient towards renunciation, right? We don't want to cause harm. It doesn't feel good to cause harm. It doesn't lead us in a good direction, right? So we learn to refrain, to restrain, to contain, to resist, to let go of, or to abandon the impulses that cause harm. We do whatever we need to do to begin to resist the impulse to cause harm. This is what renunciation is doing. It's renouncing unwholesomeness, which is a wise act, a wise act. Renouncing unwholesomeness is actually part of sila. It's actually how sila is perfected. Because with sila, we're learning to cultivate the skillful, the ethical, the kind, the useful, and we're learning how to let go of or put aside that which causes harm, that which is unskillful. And renunciation is kind of based upon a certain kind of investigation. We're beginning to notice what causes, what leads to causing suffering, and what leads to ease of well-being. We're learning that, right? So this investigation, this investigative process seeds wisdom. It seeds discernment. But what exactly is wisdom? I rolled this question around for a long time in my practice. I tried to figure out, like, when do I arrive at wise? When does wisdom dawn on this mind and this heart? And it's kind of a good question to ask, because actually this is what the practice is all about. It's all about cultivating wisdom. So wisdom isn't just intellectual knowledge and understanding. That's what we're accustomed to thinking about, or how we think about it in this modern culture. But rather here, wisdom is based on a deep understanding that has been realized through our own felt experience, not through somebody telling us, not through reading something about what somebody else's experience was, but from our own experience. Ehipassiko, come and see for yourself. That's the Buddha's invitation. Come and see for yourself. See what brings about ease of well-being. See what brings about suffering. Don't trust me. Trust your own experience. And I often think about this, like how when we're young, our parents and our elders often would try to guide us with words of wisdom, the do's and the don'ts, so that, we don't fall in the same holes that they did. We don't have to learn the hard way. But, kids will be kids. We were all kids, and we learn often the hard way. We learn by making our own mistakes and then recognizing, oh, that's exactly what my folks were telling me about. Oh, right. And when we learn it from within our own experience, it generally has a better chance of sticking. So I remember when I was a kid, the very first time that I burnt myself on the stove. And it's like, my mother and my grandmother, I see them in the kitchen. In my mind's eye, I see them in the kitchen cooking. And I can remember being a little kid and reaching up, wanting to my mother or something. And she said, be careful, because you're going to burn yourself and that's going to hurt. And, you hear that, but it doesn't really land. It doesn't land until you actually burn your finger. And then you say, I don't ever want to do this again. But even still, it takes a few more burns, honestly, before we really learn to be mindful around hot things, right? We still burn ourselves, and we know better, but it takes a while for us to kind of up our game and be aware of what we are doing as we're doing it. Well, the Buddha also made some suggestions, right? He was suggesting to us that if we look more carefully and more directly into our own experience, that we may begin to see the many ingrained patterns of thought and behavior that contribute to our distress, that aren't aligned with our well-being. And that seeing these patterns clearly is the first step in cultivating wisdom. Because until we see anything, until we see it, we're held hostage to it. Yeah, I know it, but no, we don't. We have to see it clearly enough that we can say, oh, there it is again. That thought, that self-deprecating thought, there it is, right there. And then by seeing it in that way, we can begin to do something different, right? We have for a moment created a little wiggle room, which is so important. So important. So ehipassiko, come and see for yourself. Come and see for yourself through investigation, by seeing and feeling and exploring, being with things just as they are, not as we want them to be. But by seeing things as they are, we can learn what causes harm and what causes ease of well-being. We can learn also the laws of cause and effect, that when I do this, this is the result. That is the result, right? And by doing that, by observing cause and effect, we can begin to discern how to best proceed. That's very wise on our part to begin to really look at, when I speak in this way, this is the result. When I speak in a harsh way, the result is not going to be good. Someone's going to be offended. If I speak in a kind way, somebody is likely to be more appreciative, right? So we start to learn this cause and effect. And the Buddha also suggested that we learn by repeated and close observation and gradually coming to know the nature of the reality that we live in, and that it has certain characteristics that are common to all of the experience, which is, and some of you have heard these words, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Anicca, that everything is changing all the time, that we can't stop that. We can't stop that. Dukkha, that there is no steady state of happiness to be found outside of ourselves. No steady state of happiness outside of ourselves. And then anatta, that there is nothing inherently separate, that we are part of a radically interconnected world. No escaping that. And as we come to see these three characteristics of existence, as they're called, we start to see their importance, because they begin to shape how we see and relate to the world, right? The big deal with wisdom is that it changes how we relate to the world from a very sort of self-centered perspective to seeing how when I'm careful with my speech and careful with my actions, I feel comfortable in my skin, and I haven't hurt anyone out here, right? Recognizing that everything is changing, also the impermanence factor also helps us to hold what's difficult. It will pass. Something else will take its place. And we learn how to hold what's difficult because and can bear witness to it often because of the impermanence. And by recognizing that everything is always changing, we can really appreciate what we have, what's right here before us in this very moment. Right? We can appreciate the things that we take for granted, that we have food, water, shelter, clothing, that we have medicine, that we have creature comforts, whatever they may be. And we learn to appreciate deeply what we have. And finally, we also learn perhaps how to take things a little less personally. All of us humans are bound by these things. All of us are bound by dukkha, the dukkha and the sukha of this life. Recognizing that dukkha is part of life can help us resist blaming ourselves for the things that don't go as planned. It's not our fault. It's not always our fault, right? And recognizing that our view is not the only view, my goodness, that our view is not the only view or necessarily the right view, can give rise to a more cooperative and a more collaborative nature, a collaborative view. So important. So important. So what wisdom is, just to summarize, it's an internalization of our intellectual and our felt experience understanding. Wisdom happens in a gradual way. It's not like a sudden, breaking of the skies open with light. It's not like that. It's more gradual. It occurs in these small moments of life, these little ahas that suddenly, like that aha moment is internalized, and we get it. We get a piece of knowledge that shapes how we choose to relate to the world. And the intentionality of relating to the world in a direction of less suffering and more ease of well-being. That's what wisdom is all about moving in that direction. We can do this. We can do this one moment of the time. We can do this for our own welfare and for the welfare of all. So thank you for your kind attention. And let's just take the next few moments and turn the attention toward the body, give the body some kind attention. What does it need right now at this hour of the day? And this is a kind, wise act. What's uncomfortable, what can be What kind of ease can we create around the discomfort? This is wisdom in action. Taking your time and feeling into as much ease as is possible right now. Eyes open, eyes closed, but soft gaze. Soft gaze as you watch and feel over the body as it settles down. The wisdom of letting go of tension. The wisdom of noticing ease. Softening the upper body. And on the next inhalation, filling the whole of the interior from base to crown with air. And then softening and settling around the space you've just created. The wisdom of making room. Let the busyness of the mind be like clouds in the sky. Let them pass through. And very gently but firmly, keep attention as much as possible in the body. Let it move as it breathes. periodically checking in. Where's the mind? Has it wandered away? Notice, take a breath, come on back in. Tether the breath to the body to the ground. And stay in a body breathing. Smooth out the wrinkles. Softening. Softening around the eyes and the face. Softening the shoulders and the hands. The belly and the base.
And in the last few minutes of the meditation, taking a breath and coming back inside. Feel the whole of the body as it's sitting here. And breathe with whatever comfort or ease is in the posture. And just breathe with that. And then very gently open the aperture of attention and sense all of us sitting here with you and you sitting here with us. We create space to hold ourselves and each other. And what a lovely gift that is that we offer ourselves and each other. Let that awareness saturate the whole of the organism for the next few breaths. Thank you for your. I'll stop the recording, give you all permission to unmute.